It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson, and as always, I have with me my wonderful co-host, Andy Grabner. Andy, how are you doing? Are you ready for our funny introduction today?
Yeah, of course, I'm always ready for a funny introduction, especially it is, what is it today? It's
February
late in the
24th.
evening here. Yeah. It's actually not a funny day, considering what just happened in the world, if people are listening to this. But I think we have to take the best out of it because the world keeps moving, and we do our best to, educate and entertain people.
Chin up, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but I'm really happy because we have a special guest today.
Yes,
and
he's been with us for a long time now.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember way back when this guy was compared to, I forget the actor's name, but he used to be on Community and was it Talk Soup? Who was that? I think he knows who I'm talking about. But I forget who it is. Joel? No, not Joel.
Joel McHale. And I would be, if people confused me for him, I would be very happy. But I don't think that'll happen.
So Steve, welcome to the show.
Steve
It's
Tack.
about time you guys had me on this show. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. You said, why did it take that many years? So you have a totally different tone now as you are publicly on record. But Steve, no, seriously, it's great to have you. Can you please just quickly introduce yourself for those folks that have maybe not heard of you yet?
Sure. My name is Steve Tack. I lead the product management team for Dynatrace. And so I spend a lot of my time not only on roadmap, investment themes, problem areas, but a lot of time also with customers, prospects, partners, analysts, and more. So I get to see a lot of different dimensions of the market.
And I think a great thing, and that goes for you and for many others of the leadership team, also includes, I think, Brian and myself. We are Dynatracers, and we've been here forever, right? I think a great thing is that we've seen a lot of things over the years. We have evolved with our customers. We've seen their growing pains and their pains as they went through transformations. And I think what I love about Dynatrace, and I also said this in my keynote at Perform, which is a primary topic today, that I really love the company because burned from the top, right? From burned downwards, we have so many people that have been here for ages. Yeah. And I think that's great.
Yeah, no, I think there's something really special when you can get that kind of tenure and the camaraderie that comes with it. And by no means is it because it's an easy and comfortable ride. I think what keeps us all motivated is how challenging this is and how much pride and value we take out of helping customers succeed in the space with what they can do with Dynatrace. So definitely a unique spot, especially in tech.
Yeah. And then, talking about customers, typically, pre-COVID, we have covered Perform, our annual user conference on site. Brian, we had also the guys from PerfBytes, Mark and James there, and we were covering all of the different sessions this year. This was different. So was last year because it was also virtual. But we wanted to take the opportunity to give people a little recap in case they have not seen any of the coverage, any of the breakouts or keynotes. And I would Steve, right, we were two of the fortunate handful of people that actually made it to Vegas, which was nice. And because some people may not realize, while obviously the breakouts were, pre-recorded, and we don't want to lie about this, breakouts were pre-recorded. The keynotes, however, were mostly done live, which was really great. We had a great production company on site. Maybe also a shout out to Hart Wilcox is the company that we have decided to partner with. They've done a phenomenal job, and we had 2 days of hands-on training days, well, virtual but live, and then we had day 1 and day 2. Steve, you have been leading all of the keynotes around product announcements, and I just want to quickly walk through kind of what we announced on day 1, and then we'll go on to day 2. But let's first start with day 1 and see what what was relevant? Why did we decide to announce the things we announced on day one, and what was it all about? And what are the kind of the takeaways from you also, and what do you think people need to understand and look into?
Yeah, so good way to tee it up, because I think it gives us a chance to not only look at the announcements in isolation, but we can talk about the trends that we're seeing in the market, what we're learning from customers and partners, and as we were talking about on the pre-call, we do announcements on a continuous basis. I mean, if you take a step back and look at what Dynatrace provides, we don't batch things up. We're not doing 2 major releases a year like even some other large SaaS vendors do. But we want to make sure we're continuously putting new capabilities into our customers' hands. And usually what we try to do around Perform is highlight some of the things that we think are most relevant for either pain points that are being addressed or new innovations that we want to make sure people take a hold of and run with. And there's usually themes as we go through the different days, and to dive now into day one, the focus really was around modern observability and how people are driving that forward. And I know as we work in a market that's full of buzzwords, we have to be a little bit careful of too much puffery. But I do believe this, down to my toes, that digital transformation is a real trend. That's not a aha moment that's going to blow anyone's hair back. But the thing that I always enjoy is you take that word or phrase, and then you just put it into context of one customer, and it really comes to life. And what we've seen over the past year, whether it's a retailer, shifting from bricks and mortar to buy online, pick up in store, or changing, a business model in terms of just even, we've all been using online banking forever, but the impact COVID and the pandemic had on branch operations to, the way people are taking care of travel. I mean, there's just so many different initiatives that have taken place. And so day one was around taking that theme, but then looking at how people are attacking it to making sure they're getting value. And we all know cloud native technology is really the vehicle of choice here. That's not going to be a surprise to your listeners. But once again, trying to do it in the Dynatrace way, we brought forward 2 announcements that are helping customers go down that path. And the first one was around Dynatrace's introduction of the most complete multi-cloud serverless architecture support. So something we've been doing for a while with AWS, but bringing it forward to GCP and Google Functions as well as Azure Functions. And when we think about serverless, we really think about this in kind of the macro view. It's not just functions; it's the Kubernetes containerized platforms, managed Kubernetes, and more. And our goal is to help customers adopt these new technologies with confidence, so that they can do it at scale. That we're providing them answers in the Dynatrace way that they can then drive intelligent automation off of, and also make sure we're helping them coverage their multi-cloud environments. And so these are themes that have been running through the Dynatrace roadmap, but it was a great time to punctuate it and bring it forward. So I'll pause there and just make sure I don't keep rambling.
And that you're doing a great job especially for a first-time guest. You're doing an awesome job. And I want to.
I've been prepping, Andy. Once you invited me, I've been doing this dress rehearsal almost every night. So.
And he's been practicing for years, waiting for us to ask him on. Remember, so he's been just at home practicing. One thing I just want to point out, though, you mentioned about the transformation of everything. I was just reading an article the other day about how the restaurant industry is really having a hard time adjusting because of COVID. Everyone got used to ordering takeout and getting delivery, and they cannot maintain serving their customers. Now the customers are going back and also doing all the takeout stuff. So and everybody expects it to just come now. Like, I want to get my order and I want it done, right? And it's much bigger than obviously just the software side of it, but like every industry is absolutely getting hit by it. Even the ones you wouldn't even think, like restaurants you wouldn't think are going into digital and have to deal with that, but they're being forced to because the market is now demanding that, right? Many people want to just get their food and take it home. I don't necessarily want to eat it at the restaurant, right? But so it's everywhere. It's changing. It's in places we never thought of.
And maybe also to add to this, an example that I've seen in some restaurants, more and more restaurants now that I've been to offer, you can order at your table with your cell phone, right? I mean, obviously they have the QR codes, and then you can get the menu, but you can also order. And I think that also brings the digital experience to the physical experience, which is really cool, but also challenging. Because what happens if I order and then I order a beer because that's what I like to drink in the evening, and then I just have to wait 5 minutes. This is not the experience that I want, because somewhere
I want it now. I need my beer.
Yeah, because my Kubernetes cluster in the backend just kind of, ran out of resources, and therefore my order got lost somewhere in, I don't know, cyberspace. Yeah. But Steve, sorry, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to agree with both what you and Brian said, that different industries and also influence the expectations you have elsewhere, and so it's all too easy. We often use maybe more consumer sort of brand experiences or retail experiences, but whether it be manufacturing, whether it be any industry, like you said, Brian, restaurants, these trends are very pervasive, and they're global. There's not any sort of limit, or it's just bleeding edge companies or just one industry or the other. The reality is this is a very broad challenge that people are reacting to, and there will be winners and losers in terms of how well they can adapt to these new expectations.
Hey, Steve, I know I want people to watch, obviously, the keynotes that you did, where you also brought in the product managers from Linz and showing all of these capabilities. Especially what you said here, I want to highlight a couple of breakouts, because folks, if you are going to perform.dynatrace.com, and if you've registered in the past, you can just sign in with the same credentials and you can see everything on demand. A couple of things that really were special to me on day one. I remember the session from SAP. So Tim Gerlach, who I've also worked with over the years, he was showing how he's using Dynatrace to monitor all of their cloud environments across 4 hyperscalers plus the SAP cloud. They have 200,000 one agents. They have 7,000 users of Dynatrace, right? I mean, that's quite a scale. And they're ranging from everything from, as you mentioned, Kubernetes, but also using OpenTelemetry to then monitor workloads where the one agent is not the best choice, whether this is serverless for whatever reason, or whether this is some also traditional code bases, right? I mean, that's really phenomenal. So check out this session. Another session that I want to highlight, because you mentioned the full kind of experience that we bring now, the broadest coverage. There's a session from Mario Mauracher and Patrick Turner, 2 product managers, with Eric Little from Wiley, talking about how they are using Dynatrace to really cover containers, Kubernetes, but also serverless. I think there's some really great sessions. This is in the advanced dynamic cloud native workload track. So we have a couple of tracks, so please check them out. I'm sure there's more, but as you navigate through the recordings, what I always click on it, scan through it. You can, once you're in there, you can easily also navigate back and forth in the video to pick the sweet spots. But the nicest thing is that we have customers really show how they're using these capabilities and how they are innovating and how they become game changers, which is also the topic of Perform, right? How to become digital game changers. So a great first announcement. Yeah.
And Andy, I think the SAP one especially, the big thing I got out of that one is if you think back to the last time SAP spoke at Perform, when they were talking about building their own monitoring platform, and then they discovered Dynatrace, and they're like, oh, well, we can just use that instead of building our own. Now they're moving into this, well, we have other data sources, and we want to pick the right way to get data, to capture the data, right? Mm-hmm. And as we know, with the whole open telemetry and the DIY movement, capturing is just one part. And I think part of what this announcement we bring to Steve is, what do you do with that data once you capture it? That is the harder part, right? You can manually instrument your code, not that anybody necessarily wants to do that, but you can do that, right? But you have to get into something that's going to intelligently analyze it and bring things up to you. And I think that's where that piece really shines. And the example with SAP was, we're going to use multiple ways to get data, some Dynatrace, some open telemetry, some other ways of getting it. But at the end of the day, we need to get it into some platform that we can analyze this all properly and make sense out of it. And that, to me, was the real just awesome thing about this idea of, moving forward, what do we do with our data? And that's important to be able to support all that.
Yeah. Steve, day one, what else was there?
Yeah. So the second big announcement was around delivering software intelligence as code. And I want to take one step back and build off of what Brian was saying, because I think that's a really important point. Somewhere along this path, when we started adopting, quote unquote, cloud native tech, we regressed a little bit. And it's almost like the end game is getting data and throwing it on a dashboard and building on Brian's point in terms of making it actionable, driving answers. I think that bleeds into the second announcement, because this is really about automation at scale. And so when we think about the movements like infrastructure as code, GitOps, everything is code. This is very much aligned and analogous to that, where we don't believe it's just about capturing data. It's something where we have to make sure that development teams can innovate faster, that you get strong collaboration. I mean, that SAP stat of 7,000 users is awesome. It's not just kind of the wizards in the back room, the handful of people that are taking action, but it's really about, a community at that point. And so the announcement of software intelligence as code, when you peel back, it's about new API endpoints and settings granularity for autonomous teams and things along those lines. But when you look at the output and the objective that it helps customers get to, it's about how do we make sure observability, how do we make sure AI ops, how do we make sure application security are built into these applications as the dev teams design them, so that you can run them at scale with resilience and put more focus on really building new capabilities that are meaningful to your business versus kind of manual, handoffs between DevOps and SRE teams or painful manual instrumentation and things along those lines. So this has also been something that we've been building through Dynatrace. It also harnesses and captures some of the work on the open source side with Monaco and things along those lines. But this is something where we see it's not just an announcement of product capabilities and platform capabilities, but it really should have an impact on the culture and the process that people drive.
Exactly. And you bring up Monaco, right? Monaco stands for Monitoring as Code. It's the internal project that we open sourced because we at Dynatrace also had the need to configure and manage Dynatrace at scale. Because for those people that may not know, we are obviously using Dynatrace to monitor and manage all of your Dynatrace clusters. And nobody wants to sit there and manually create dashboards for a new cluster that we monitor or set up new alerts. And with nobody, I actually mean my wife, Gabi, right? Because Gabi, she's in the Dynatrace Ace team, and they have invested a lot in automation. And what they've built on top of the Dynatrace API is a layer that allows you in a declarative way to define what do you want from Dynatrace, what metrics on which dashboards, which alerts, what tagging rules, and then you can put this like you would put your code or your configuration for your deployments, for your tests in Git, and then you are pushing it as part of a deployment and delivery process to Dynatrace. Because as you are pushing code into different environments, you're not only pushing code, you also want to push the necessary configuration changes for monitoring, for observability. And I thought that was really nice, right? And sometimes these things happen. We think something is useful for our customers. The nice thing I believe with Dynatrace is we are always our first customer because we are a software company. We have innovated over the years, we've transformed over the years, and so we have transformed our platform, and therefore we bring the stuff to our customers that we thought was really useful. And yeah, pretty cool. Some sessions to highlight here. I always try to bring up a couple of breakout sessions. There is a track called Advancing DevOps and DevSecOps. And this one covers a couple of these. How can we automate Dynatrace into a delivery cycle? Right. So I've done a session with Mike Kobush from NAIC, showing how we can automate observability into the testing cycle. There are some others I want to highlight here from Sergio Hinojosa. He's one of our colleagues, and the session is called Observability-Driven Orchestration from Git Commit to Production Release. Really cool stuff. So please, do me a favor and check it out. There's a lot of stuff in the Advancing DevOps and DevSecOps track.
And Andy, one thing I wanted to add to that point too is just the fact that, a lot of what we're talking about are advanced features that SAP obviously is doing things like that very well. But a lot of our customers don't necessarily always have the time to go down those routes of like, hey, I want to get into advanced automation and all, but they know about it, right? So obviously within Dynatrace, they can do these things manually, the regular way things are going. But the real beauty of it there, to me at least, is that now that's open, when they have the time, when they find the teams that they can start experimenting, they can start leading down that path, because the only way you get there is to start, experimenting with it and say, hey, look at this cool thing we did. Then someone else comes in and says, that's awesome. Let's see what more we can do with it. And, with these announcements, we've just you have that ability now. The door is open for you to get down that path when you can get to it, when you can spend the time. So you're not limited, right? You're using Dynatrace. You have that ability to get there when the opportunity presents itself. And I think that's really, really important to enable our customers that way.
So day one, just to wrap that day up, I think people should also have a look at the customer panel. I'm just looking here we had Dell, we had Humana, we had Ford on a customer panel with Andrew Hiddle talking about their experiences as they have been kind of transforming their organizations. And obviously we had the keynote from Professor Max Tegmark, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, an MIT professor talking about being human in the age of artificial intelligence. So day one, I remember, Steve, day one was Wednesday, exactly. Wednesday night, I think we had a good dinner and some good drinks and some good conversations.
Absolutely.
And then we were all prepped for day two. And day two brought even more really relevant announcements for the game changers. You want to walk us through your first announcement?
Yeah, let's jump in to the announcement of launching the DevSecOps Automation Alliance Partner Program. And I think this is an easy bridge from your reflection on the NAIC talk and how they're looking to automate more through their environment. This is something that we see across every Dynatrace customer. It's really, how can we help make their ecosystem smarter? How can we work more closely with our partners and others that kind of flow through that ecosystem? And so we put a little bit of a focus point here on the pipeline. So as people look through how they advance their continuous delivery pipeline, how are they doing it in a way that they're getting the right feedback loops, that they're aware of how things will perform in production, but then also how we increase speed. So that's where sort of the work with Atlassian from Bitbucket or Jenkins, or how do we drive that forward? How are we sure it's going to be resilient? So maybe some of the more advanced use cases, like working with Gremlin and chaos engineering, to intelligent release decisions through things like feature flags with Launch Darkly. These are all the areas where, when you think about the right signals that you have, the right answers, as we've talked about, you can really increase speed, increase ultimately the better experience at the edge for those digital interactions. But I think we had close to 17 launch partners here. I'm sure I'm maybe not doing it justice, and pulling out folks like XMatters or PagerDuty or GitLab, or I'm sure Andy, you'll add some on the top, and Brian. But this was really about making sure that we continue to drive the ecosystem forward for the benefit of all of our mutual customers, and ultimately allow them to deliver better experiences to their end customers at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the big point here is, I think some of that you missed, maybe Slack and Microsoft and I guess
those companies.
The
broader.
No, but I think for me, the big benefit here, and I just want everybody to understand, observability is not just something that allows you to put a metric on a dashboard. Observability is what's going to drive your delivery processes and delivery decisions. And what you as customers or future customers, whoever you are asked to do is integrate observability into your processes. That means using observability to make automated decisions on whether a build is good to go from dev to staging, from staging to production, and to keep it in there. Now you have two options. You can either integrate all of these tools, your testing tools, your feature flagging tools, your deployment tools, with your observability platform of choice, which means you need to write a lot of custom code, or you rely on custom point-to-point integrations. Or you do it the Dynatrace way, because what we have done is we've said we don't want to build another point-to-point custom proprietary integration with all of your DevOps tools. We don't want you to write and maintain all of these scripts that chain everything together. So what we've been doing, and I think this is a lot of thanks to the work we've been doing with the open source project Captain, we have standardized the way we want DevOps tools in the future to collaborate and to integrate. We are standardizing on the way we integrate. We have adopted an event-driven model, which is the same model that we're using to break monoliths into microservices and connect individual services to really, again, fulfill a business process. So we've taken what works for cloud-native development and bring it to the DevOps and SRE space, and we provide you an open source-driven framework that we bring to our customers as part of cloud automation to allow you to hook in any of your tools. So protect your investment in your point tools, but let us take care of chaining them all together through open standards so that you don't have to hire more automation engineers to build and maintain your bash scripts that will break anyway all the time. And I think this is for me the magic here, what we're doing. And it's great with the 17 launch partners that we have, because they basically tell us that this is exactly what they want. Because also these launch partners, you brought up, let's say, Gremlin. Why should Gremlin or Microsoft or LaunchDarkly invest engineering resources to build and maintain integrations with all of the observability tools, proprietary? Why not go with a standard? And I think we are in the unique position here to drive this standard. And with this, we will help us, our customers, and hopefully the larger community. And this is why I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, and that's a really good emphasis point. I probably skimmed over it too quick. Is that open operability? Then also we see the benefit of continuing to drive the Captain project forward, but Dynatrace customers take advantage of that as part of productized capabilities in the cloud automation module. And I do want to take a chance just to thank, obviously I get to be a spokesperson for a lot of these releases, but that was an example where we brought Alice Reitbauer, to the main stage, just like Florian Ortner was on day one. Andreas Berger we'll get to next, but there's so much great work, that the team's doing to bring this forward. And I'm lucky enough to be the person who introduces it to the audience, but there's so many people who are passionate and care about this and doing, really innovative, great stuff to drive it forward. And this ecosystem is an example of multiple companies, coming together on the work that Andy, you and others have been doing with Captain as well, and should have a big impact within the industry.
Yeah, and you also got to see that nice break sign behind Alois in the cafe there. But the other thing I wanted to point out with this, right? All these integrations point to a fact that I think there's an assumption, or I think a lot of people understand, but it's never really said out loud. Observability doesn't mean that a human has to observe, right? Observability allows the machines to do the observing. So if you have that full-fledged and you're capturing the richness of data, you can put that in the hands of machine to machine to machine, or software to software, whatever it is. It doesn't mean you as a human have to go and observe all that. And we've seen that coming through already. I mean, going back to one of our old favorite Perform speakers who's now with us, Nestor, right? We learned about how they made all their machines talk to each other, and that's becoming more and more commonplace, more and more enabled. And just stressing the fact that it doesn't mean you as an operator in this realm have to be able to look at all this data, make the machines do the work. And that's where we're heading. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and Brian, that's the only way companies will be able to get the speed and scale. There's no way to get the humans to do that broadly. And so I think that's a really good point, that it's so core to our belief system that we sometimes skip over that as well, in the sense that this reactive manual looking at dashboards is something that, yes, there's a point in time where you need to be able to go investigate that way, but that should not be the starting spot or the MO. We really want to drive as much of the automation in there as possible. And that's a really good point to stress.
Steve, so this was announcement 1, which already is pretty excitement on day 2. So announcement 3, if we do the total number, there was one more announcement on day 2. What was that all about?
So the second announcement on day 2, we'll take what we just talked about around the DevSecOps alliances and put a little bit of a spotlight on security for a moment. So this is an area where we've been evangelizing the Dynatrace approach to runtime detection and production for a little while now. And we had a huge marketing event called Log4Shell that really created a lot of energy around this topic right around December. So the announcement here was taking and building upon the vulnerability analytics and identification that we already do and adding real-time attack detection and blocking. So Andreas Berger joined us on stage for this one and showed using actually the Log4Shell incident and vulnerability that not only does Dynatrace detect that and help prioritize where your remediation efforts should be centered based on risk and other sort of analytics that we uniquely embed in there, but that as your team is going through the remediation efforts, we can give you the comfort and security that we can actually block further attacks. So as other people try to take advantage of those openings and different attack vectors, that we will actually stop and protect the environment. So as some might call this the RASP market or RASP mode 2 or whatever you define that as, it's really taking application security to that next level, realizing that you can't test your way out of these vulnerabilities, that you can't scan your way out of them, that in a cloud native dynamic environment, you really have to protect from within the application. And Dynatrace is now offering the ability to really manage that real-time attack protection. And so super exciting announcement, super exciting innovation, and then really highlighting this convergence of security and observability in cloud native environments.
And because it's fresh on my mind, I just rewatched it and I tweeted about it. It is day 2, the tech session, minute 14, when Andreas Berger is showing the protect feature, which I thought was really interesting because he made a very cool comment. He said, vulnerabilities come, right? You cannot test for it. I think that's what he said nicely. But the thing is, what do you do between the vulnerability is detected until you can actually fix it? You need a safeguard. You need somebody, a guardian angel that can kind of protect you and give you the time that you need to actually fix all of these vulnerabilities. And I think this is actually where the time, at least that's what I took away from his presentation. We can help you buy that time. You get this time back so that in the time you are vulnerable until you fix it, we help you at, basically make sure that these requests are not doing any harm. And I thought that was really, really powerful, a powerful message.
Yeah, if we need a name for that, we have the name for Davis for our AI. Since you just called it a guardian angel, we'll have to call it Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. That'll be the working name. The other cool thing I thought with the security bit, not necessarily with that latest announcement, but just you mentioned the whole Log4Shell, is how receptive everyone is suddenly. We'll just mention, if you have interest in the security piece, they're like, yes, right? Mm-hmm. And then the great thing, like from Andy and I's point of view, for years now, we've been talking about this whole shift left. Now I know there's also a bit of a shift right movement, right, going on, Andy. All these things have been coming up. And when people realize we can have these scans going on, shifting left, so that we know in our cycle, we're pulling down the right package, we're capturing if somebody forgot to grab the latest package that might be the best one to use. It's just the same model that we're seeing from a performance point of view being baked into security. And it's just really encouraging to see how many people are starting to take security seriously now, because it's like performance. It's been the slow uptake, but I think Log4Shell, for all the unfortunate reasons that happened, it's just it's nice to see people responding proactively with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Brian, to that point, what's changed is they realize the existing processes just are built for an environment that doesn't exist anymore. And so when they think about how do they protect themselves moving forward, how can they deploy fastly and with confidence that it's secure, they realize that they'll have to extend and change their approach, much like their environment is changing. And that's where you're right. It is unfortunate. I don't mean to make light of the war rooms that people are in and the remediation efforts and things like that, but it really does. It just personifies a lot of the challenges that we see that will be pervasive in the world and as people adopt these technologies more and more. So it was definitely an interesting point in time. And you're right, the reception has been very positive to this because no one wants to put any of their customers, data at risk, the potential of a breach, anything along those lines. And so putting such a high degree of trust in terms of the types of companies you want to do business with, this just goes right along with that.
Yeah.
For the security topic, I really also want to highlight a breakout session. It's called Address Log4Shell with Ease. That is a session from Andreas Berger, who did also the keynote with you, and also Christian Schwarzbauer, who is the lead architect. I would really highly recommend this because they really show some really great stuff what we're doing. Now, besides, we've talked a lot about these announcements. I think in the end, what we also want to make sure is that what matters most is the end user, right? We help our customers transform, provide digital services. There's a lot of great breakout sessions around how to monitor and optimize the user experience. For instance, Vitality did a session that was called How to Proactively Deliver Seamless User Experience. Vitality, one of our customers, I think in the UK, how they monitor the business impact from end user and including mobile. So they really showed the whole range of our capabilities from mobile back to the backend system. Another thing was from State of Minnesota, was another really great session on day one, optimizing app performance with end-to-end visibility from UX to code. So folks, as you are listening to this and as you are contemplating about, do I really want to, what type of content is interesting for me from Perform, what should I consume? Really check out these different tracks. There's such great information, especially the customer sessions. Now, if you watch these breakouts, typically in the beginning, we have a Dynatrace speaker kind of teasing it up and talking about what we've done from a product perspective and why we've done certain things. And then it's the customer speak. I can really encourage you to check it out. Steve, this was day 2. On day 2, we had a couple of interesting other keynotes too, right? I want to highlight the customer panel that Safe was leading, Duke Energy, Lockheed Martin, and Park and Fly. So this was all around how they are using Dynatrace's Davis AIOps capabilities. Really fascinating. Then we had Debbie interviewing Simone Biles, and I'm still frustrated that I didn't get to meet her in person because exactly when she was there for that session, I was delivering a hot day class. But I was prioritizing our customers, delivering hands-on training to meeting her. But you met her, right?
I did. I have a picture of in realizing that this is a podcast. I'm about 6'2". She's 4'8", so that made a nice contrast. But it's the first time my 12-year-old daughter ever got excited about work was when I told her that I was going to meet Simone Biles. That was a highlight for her. And Simone was kind enough and gracious enough to take a lot of pictures, and she recorded a really quick video snippet that I was able to send to my daughter, introducing the two of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then my personal highlight, it was my keynote with Kelsey Hightower. And the keynote itself was fascinating, but I'm pretty sure I've said it many times already. More fascinating for me was him and his personality, and also the fact that he came in a day and a half earlier, even though we only hired him for the keynote, but he came in a day and a half early and he spent all of Wednesday with me, walking through a technical discussion, but then also giving me direct personal feedback and advice on how to run interviews like this. And I'm not sure if he listens to this, but if you ever get a chance to see and meet Kelsey, tell him that he's a true game changer in many ways. And he also then, what was so great for me, when we were done with the keynote, he kind of heard, hey, we're doing a day 2 wrap-up. And he said, hey, Andy, can I be part of the wrap-up too? I just wonder, I'm here. What else should I do? And then, yes, of course, he did the wrap-up. And then afterwards, he said, hey, I have another 4 hours until my plane leaves. Let's go and grab some pizza. And then we grabbed pizza. And it was just really phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched a little bit of that post one. And going back to point number 1, one thing Kelsey said that really resounded with me, and I'm summing it up, I hope I don't get it wrong, was around the idea that he sees the future of Kubernetes as limited, meaning stressing that a lot more people are going to eventually want to just start going over more and more serverless, right? Because Kubernetes was a great way to get off your own infrastructure, and you could run it and have it doing a bunch of magic for you. But now that this whole serverless and function type of thing is really getting solid, it's like, why do we want to even maintain that bit? I just want to write my code and push it out. And that comes back to this idea of, if you're doing that, you just have to get whatever data you can and get that, information out of it by any means, right? So get the data in, process it, get answers, get information, and it's this highly evolving ecosystem that we're always going to be having to stay on top of. But I think, as a company, we're definitely set up for that. But even just for our customers as well, who, you talk to anybody who's using Kubernetes, and you have the developers who don't necessarily have to notice it, but then you have the whole team who's maintaining Kubernetes, and that's a whole another big job in its own, with its own frustrations. So it's interesting to see that what he's seeing out there is that people are starting to try to see how they can pull away from Kubernetes even. And it's really getting to that whole platform as a service. We've talked about this in the past before too, Andy, where it's like Cloud Foundry, I think, was ahead of its time. You still have to maintain that too, even though you have to maintain Kubernetes. But the idea of, like, I just want to write my code and push it and be done. And I think you could see the writing on the wall. That's where we're heading down that path a lot more. So really cool stuff.
Yeah, he also basically said, right, I mean, what we do as an industry, and I think also as humans in general, we look at what is working right now and what is not working, and this is then basically influencing the next iteration of what we're doing. We're taking the stuff that works and we're optimizing the stuff that doesn't work well, or that can be optimized. And this is how we ended up with Kubernetes, and this is how we're going to end up with serverless. Some people, I think we also discussed this in the wrap up, may jump even over Kubernetes completely if they have not yet sold into it, and then go straight into the next generation of technology. Like some countries, may have never went, to, let's say, I think from an internet perspective, right? I mean, there were different iterations on how we deliver internet to our citizens, right? And whether you want to lay landlines or whether you just do everything radio, I mean, there's different technology advances, and sometimes you skip over even. Right? Why not? A lot of great. I was really happy that we could actually be there in Vegas. I know it was just a selected small group of people. I'm really much looking forward to next year. Because really what makes Perform special is the interactions with our customers. And this is let's keep fingers crossed that nothing else bad happens, but it looks promising that next year we will be back in Vegas. Yeah,
I had a nice 2-year break from the insanity, but it'll be good to go back. Got a 2-year rest from the nonstop action. Yeah. It's different on the working side, as you know, Andy.
I want to highlight just one or two more sessions. I really like the software intelligence platform roadmap session. So Wolfgang Baer and Paul Schumacher did a great breakout on the roadmap. And they talked about especially how AIOps, how the adaptive baselining works for business metrics. Great coverage on dashboard improvements that are already there and also coming in the next couple of sprints. Also, he talked about settings 2.0 and all the API changes. And a lot of sessions around OpenTelemetry. Alindo Lima with Granger, our customers, did a great session called Get Actionable Answers at Scale from OpenTelemetry. Matt Ryder, one of our PMs on Kubernetes, several sessions on Kubernetes, so check it out. Henrik Rexit, he's on our team, another great session on kind of like a best of his Is It Observable YouTube channel that he has on how to really do observability right on Kubernetes, and so many more things, right? Probably the list goes on and on. Steve, this was your first appearance on the podcast.
I know. I'll be waiting to see if I ever get a return invite, I guess, on the how this is received. I know I
think you did all right.
I know you guys do a great job of. I'm a listener, so I know you're very much on the industry topic line, and this obviously has a little bit more of a Dynatrace angle, but I think it also is relevant for where a lot of we see our customers and others. But thanks for having me on the show.
Definitely, and don't I'm not sure don't undersell your position here in the industry, because, right, you are leading a software company from a product perspective that wants to make an impact, so do our customers, and therefore you are challenged with similar things, right? We are, as we all know, as every organization, we also have to face challenges around technology choices. We have to face challenges around growth. We have to face challenges around how we make sure we keep innovating with the speed that we are, and therefore it's completely important to have you and your thoughts here as well, right? Don't downplay your position here. Yeah.
No, and it's a good call out that these are real challenges for everyone. I know, Brian, you're off in the pop culture, but I think of that scene in A League of Their Own when Tom Hanks says, if it was easy, everyone could do it, or it's the hard that makes it good. And so I think tackling the really hard challenges are rewarding. But that's definitely what we're up to.
Do you use words like tackling because it's got your name in it? I'm kidding. But my challenge to you, Steve, though, is, right, you are talking to a lot of our customers. You're having the conversations about their challenges and all that. So I think, I personally, and I'll put Andy on the spot, I think it would be great to have you back on to talk about what the challenges are that companies are seeing and what they're trying to do to tackle those. Because I think a lot of our listeners are working at these companies or other companies that have similar situations that they're going through. So I think that would definitely be a great thing to come back and talk about.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, Andy. Put you on the spot. He's going to say, that's a terrible idea.
I'm game too.
The one thing I wanted to just say too, I want to really give a shout out to Perform, because you mentioned earlier how we don't hold up releases, right? It's like every 2 weeks or stuff's coming out. And if I go back to the early days of Perform, when it was more Atmon and we were on that 6-month release cycle, there was always this big bang of cool new stuff coming out. And as we moved into the new Dynatrace platform, I started wondering, like, how are we going to have cool announcements during the Perform if the announcements are coming out all year? And it was a little bit softer, but now I think we're getting into a nice cadence where, I don't know if it's timing or just coincidence, but as we've seen, the last couple of Performs have been having some really great announcements going out through them. So it's really cool seeing that evolve into that way without having to compromise on holding releases up or anything like that. So it's right, quite amazing what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not necessary. I mean, the announcements are great, but I think even better at Perform is to show that customers are actually implementing and getting value of these announcements, because everybody can make an announcement about a new cool feature and it sounds shiny on the press release, but the question is, does it really improve the lives of people? Right? And that's what our customer testimonials are all about, and them actually putting their name out personally, their company name, and then investing the time to show it off also in a breakout. I think this is just, for me, the best thing about Perform. Yeah, right. Cool.
Any awesome. Final thoughts, Steve?
No, I think we've covered a lot of good ground. I love the call to action that you guys provide of going out, watching some of the breakouts, and I think as people look through the breakouts, they should find things that they can implement today and get value. And so we talked a little bit about solving challenges, but there's a lot that customers can learn from those breakouts in terms of how to implement things that will probably be on the relative scale low effort for high return. And that's what excites me too, is seeing people getting the return and implementing those changes that they can use then in their business for their own end customers and different strategies that they're driving forward. So nothing other than that. But thanks again, guys, for giving me the opportunity to share the different announcements.
Wonderful. Thanks. Well, Andy will give me all of the links he's talked about, so those will all be in the show notes. So if you're listening, you can go to Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com, and look for the show. It will also be up on our website, Dynatrace.com. I think if you do /pure performance, it'll redirect you to the proper URL. I think there's a path in between there, but if you want to get to those, they're free to watch. I think you just have to sign up. But even if it's not related to the product, the topics in general are I think would be of very much of great interest. There we go. I'm having the problem speaking today, Andy. My goodness. All right. Andy, any last words from you?
No, I'm just happy that we had Steve on the call, and I'm sure it's not the last time.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back to our regular programming next episode. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Everyone.